So think about like the worst part of your day today.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, right. Like maybe it was an incredibly rude email you just got, or a flat tire on the way to work,
Right.
or even just some lingering heartbreak.
Right. Yeah. The heavy stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What if that wasn't a glitch in the system? What if it was actually absolute divine perfection?
Wow. Okay, that is a huge claim.
It is. Because usually, when we talk about spiritual awakening or seeking some higher truth, there's this default image that just pops into our heads. We picture like an escape.
Definitely.
A monk retreating to a quiet mountain cave, or someone closing their eyes in this perfectly lit, silent, incense-filled room to meditate.
Yeah, you see that everywhere. That escapist model of spirituality is just pervasive across so many cultures.
Right.
And the underlying belief there is that peace is exclusively found, in the absence of the everyday world. Like the logic dictates you have to tune out the noise to tune into the divine.
But then you crack open the source material we're looking at today, and that entire model is just completely turned on its head.
It really is.
So, welcome to a deep dive into the source material. We have this fascinating stack of translated teaching guides, weekly session scripts, and presentation notes created by a teacher named Alpesh Shah.
And it's a lot of material.
It's massive.
Okay.
And our mission for this deep dive is to explore this profound, centuries-old Indian philosophy called Shuddhadvaita, which translates to pure non-dualism.
Right.
Along with the Pushtimarg, the Path of Grace, which was founded by Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya. Okay, let's unpack this because I want to make one thing perfectly clear right out of the gate.
Yeah, we need to set the stage here.
This is not just some dry history lesson. It is a highly practical 5-step framework that is actively designed to shift how you view stress, your relationships, and just your entire daily routine.
And what's fascinating here is that these source documents are incredibly explicit about their purpose. I mean, they are literally engineered to cause a radical perspective shift.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
Not at all. The notes actually warn instructors against letting students treat this as merely an intellectual exercise.
Right, it's not about passing a test.
Exactly. And as we explore this, the backdrop visuals for our study have, shifted to reflect the material. So imagine this serene, softly lit Indian philosophical study.
Oh, I love that.
Lined with ancient Sanskrit manuscripts, but they're sitting right alongside very modern, practical daily journals. The goal isn't just to memorize the tenets of this philosophy. The goal is to live it.
Right. But to actually live this philosophy, the sources insist we have to fundamentally overhaul our baseline view of reality.
A total paradigm shift.
Yeah. We have to look at the physical world around us through a completely different lens. And the first major concept for this comes from a text called the Anubhashya.
Yeah, the Anubhashya. It serves as the philosophical backbone of this entire worldview. It focuses heavily on knowledge and the fundamental nature of reality itself.
Which is pretty heavy stuff.
It is, yeah. To understand how radical Vallabhacharya's perspective was, we really have to contrast it with the traditional spiritual thought of his era.
Okay, so what was everyone else saying back then?
Well, it was heavily influenced by thinkers who claimed the physical world is mithya. That's a word translating roughly to illusion.
Illusion, right.
Yeah, the dominant idea was that the world we see and touch is essentially a fake, like a dream.
So the ultimate goal in that traditional system is basically to wake up from the dream. You detach yourself from the illusion so you can finally merge with the divine, and you just leave the messy, painful world behind.
Yeah, that's the standard narrative. But Vallabhacharya comes along and just shatters that framework.
He really does.
He states emphatically that the world is not an illusion. He introduces this core concept of Akhilam Brahma, which means absolutely everything is Brahman.
Everything.
Everything is a divine expression. The world isn't a mistake, it's not a trap, and it certainly isn't a dream. It's the true, playful manifestation of the divine reality.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this.
Sure, go ahead.
If the world isn't an illusion, if everything is literally the divine playing out in reality, then why does it hurt so much? I mean, why do we feel so much profound pain, stress, anxiety? If a terrible boss or a chronic illness or a heartbreak is just a, quote, divine expression, it seems almost cruel. Why does it feel so awful?
And that tension is exactly what the source material addresses next. They use this beautiful analogy. It's the comparison of gold versus ornaments.
Okay, I like this one.
Yeah. So imagine you have a beautifully crafted bangle, an intricate necklace, and a heavy ring. They all look completely different, right?
Totally.
They have different names, they serve different functions, and they occupy different shapes in space. But what is their underlying reality?
I mean, they're all just gold. The shape changes, but the material doesn't.
Exactly. Vallabhacharya argues that our pain comes from our incomplete vision, not from a fundamental flaw in the world itself.
So we're just seeing it wrong.
We get so caught up in the form, the bangle, the ring, the rude email, the flat tire that we completely miss the essence, which is the gold, the divine essence. The reason an insult hurts is precisely because the world is real. If it were merely a fake dream, you wouldn't genuinely suffer, just like you don't cry over a nightmare once you realize you're awake in bed.
Oh, wow. That's a great point.
We hurt because we are interacting with reality, but we are misinterpreting it. We're mistaking the temporary shape for the eternal substance.
So we're basically walking around getting furious at a gold ring for not being a gold necklace.
Yeah.
And we're completely ignoring the sheer miracle that we're surrounded by gold in the first place.
That's a perfect way to put it. And that shift in perception changes everything about how you experience adversity. You're reacting to the temporary shape a situation took rather than the permanent substance it's made of.
So the problem isn't the world. The world is just a divine playground. The problem is our fragmented vision.
Precisely.
But changing that vision, I mean, that's a massive mental undertaking. The teaching guides, thankfully, don't just leave it as this abstract theory. They provide a very specific practice to help build this mental muscle.
Yeah, the daily applications are great.
So try this today. Look at 3 completely ordinary things. It could be a stranger on the street, or a mundane situation like waiting in line at the grocery store, or just a coffee mug on your desk.
Just everyday stuff.
Exactly. Actively look past the form and try to see the gold. Take a deliberate moment to acknowledge the underlying divinity in those 3 completely ordinary, seemingly insignificant things.
But if we accept that premise that the physical world is real, that the frustrating traffic jam is actually gold that creates a whole new problem.
Oh, how so?
How are we supposed to interact with it without losing our minds? I mean, we can't just stare at a traffic jam and intellectually tell ourselves it's divine. We need a way to navigate it emotionally.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that unresolved tension is what drives the next phase of the philosophy. This is found in the second core text, the Subodhini.
Right, the Subodhini.
And this text shifts the entire focus away from knowledge, like the intellectual understanding that the world is real, and moves it to bhav, which translates to deep emotion and love.
The Subodhini explains that navigating this divine playground requires true devotion, known as bhakti. But it redefines bhakti entirely.
It's not what you'd normally expect.
Not at all. It's not about going through the motions of rituals or chanting the right syllables at the exact right time. It is about prem lakshana. That's pure love, without conditions, without fear, and most importantly, without calculation.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the concept of calculation is so deeply ingrained in how modern people treat spirituality.
Oh, absolutely.
We treat the universe like a giant vending machine. We make these little subconscious deals. We say, okay, I did my 20 minutes of mindfulness meditation. I wrote 3 things in my gratitude journal. Now give me a promotion at work.
Right, give me a stress-free day.
Exactly. We are bringing cold, hard spreadsheet logic into a space that was entirely meant for love.
We turn the divine into a business partner.
Yes.
The source notes highlight the absolute flaw in this transactional mindset by pointing to the ultimate example of devotion in this framework, and that's the gopis.
Ah, the cowherd girl.
Yes, the cowherd girls deeply devoted to Krishna. In this philosophy, their devotion isn't just a nice story. It is considered the absolute highest peak of bhakti. And the reason is entirely based on their lack of calculation.
Because they weren't putting coins in the vending machine. They weren't asking for anything in return.
Exactly. They didn't even ask for spiritual liberation or enlightenment, which is, usually the ultimate final goal of any spiritual seeker.
Right. The whole point of meditating on a mountain.
Yeah. But their only driving emotion, their singular focus, was simply, Krishna is ours. And the notes make a really sharp psychological observation here. Where logic is high, love is low.
Wow.
If you're constantly calculating what you get out of a relationship, measuring your input versus your return on investment, you aren't really in love. You are just doing accounting.
Man, that hits incredibly hard. Where logic is high, love is low.
It really exposes that mindset.
It does. Think about a friend who only ever text you because they need a favor or because they're like networking for a job.
Yeah.
When you realize the calculation behind their outreach, you don't feel loved. You feel used.
Right.
And we do the exact same thing to the divine. We only reach out when something is broken, and we need the cosmic mechanic to fix it.
And the source poses a brilliant, challenging question based on this behavior. Is the divine a concept to you or an actual relationship?
Oof.
Yeah. As long as it remains a concept you use to solve problems, true devotion hasn't even begun. The ego is still running the show, trying to manipulate the divine for personal gain.
So to break that habit, to move from a transactional mindset to a genuine relationship, the weekly practice outline for you is surprisingly simple, but psychologically profound.
I love this practice.
Spend 5 minutes a day just talking to the divine, not with formal, elevated language, not reciting ancient mantras you don't actually understand. Just talk as you would to a close, intimate friend.
Just to chat.
Yeah. Tell them about your day. Share your random frustrations. Build a relationship without asking for a single favor or fix.
But stripping away the ego of performing your spirituality sounds freeing, but it actually leads directly into another trap.
Oh, what's that?
Well, once you start trying to build this pure, non-calculating relationship, you inevitably start measuring your own progress.
Oh, right.
You start wondering, how hard do I have to work at this? Am I loving enough? Am I doing the 5 minutes of talking correctly?
Yeah, we just immediately revert to measuring our effort.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the third core text, the Siddhant Rahasya, which drops a massive twist on the entire process.
The biggest twist.
Usually, every self-help book and spiritual guide tells you that the harder you work, the more spiritual you become. You literally grind your way to enlightenment through sheer discipline.
The hustle culture of spirituality.
Right. But Vallabhacharya's philosophy says that effort is actually not the key. The ultimate secret of this path is pushti, which translates to grace.
Okay, I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone hearing this for the first time, and I have to challenge this. This raises an important question.
Let's hear it.
If effort doesn't achieve the goal, do we just, sit on the couch and do nothing? Why even try to see the goal? Why practice the 5 minutes of connection if our own work doesn't get us to the finish line?
It reminds me of the paradox of trying to fall asleep.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
If you're lying in bed, intensely focusing your effort on falling asleep, counting sheep, stressing about the time, the harder you try, the more awake you become. Your effort actually prevents the result.
Exactly.
You have to set the conditions, you turn off the lights, lie down. That is the effort. But then you have to completely surrender and let sleep take you.
That psychological mechanism is a perfect parallel here. Effort is not useless. Effort is what opens the door. But grace is what actually walks through it.
You can't drag it in.
No, you cannot force the door open and drag grace inside. The notes use another incredible analogy to explain this dynamic. Imagine a mother and her young child. The child spends an hour drawing a messy, objectively terrible picture with crayons and hands it to the mother. The mother doesn't love the child because the drawing is a masterpiece.
Right, it's probably just scribbles.
Exactly. She doesn't love the child because the child earned affection through artistic effort.
Yeah.
She loves the child simply because the child is hers.
The love is a given. It precedes the effort.
You don't achieve the divine through an impressive spiritual resume. You receive it. You don't choose the divine chooses you.
Wow.
When you rely solely on your own exhaustive effort, you're quietly building up your spiritual ego. You're internalizing a narrative of, look how disciplined I am, look how much I meditate. But where that ego is present, grace cannot land. Grace requires a void, a surrender of that control.
Honestly, understanding that brings such a profound sense of relief. I mean, we all feel burnout, not just in our careers, but in our spiritual routines. We constantly try to control every single outcome.
It's exhausting.
It is. And this philosophy points out the exhausting futility of that control. You aren't the ultimate orchestrator of your spiritual success, so you can stop trying to force the universe's hand.
The resistance drops entirely. When you realize that connection is a gift of grace, rather than a wage paid for your spiritual labor, the anxiety surrounding your practice just dissolves.
So to practically apply this drop in resistance, the challenge for you today is to simply say to yourself once, I am ready.
I love that.
That's the whole practice. Consciously surrender the steering wheel. Acknowledge that your effort matters for setting the conditions and opening your heart, but let go of the suffocating need to control the timeline or the final result.
But letting go of control is beautiful in theory, but we still live in the physical world.
True.
Surrendering to grace doesn't pay the electricity bill. You still have to commute, sit in budget meetings, and do the laundry. So if we're supposed to see the world as a divine playground, build a relationship without calculating, and surrender to grace, what do we actually do on a Tuesday at 2 p.m.?
This is where the philosophy proves its absolute practicality, because doing nothing would contradict the very first premise we established, that the world is a real divine expression.
Right, the gold.
If the world is real, we must engage with it. So the culmination of this entire framework is a concept called seva, which translates to service. And the critical teaching here is the complete abolition of the boundary between spiritual time and normal time.
Which is so hard for us because we love to compartmentalize.
Oh, absolutely.
We have our 10 minutes of morning meditation, and that is sacred time. Then we have our 8 hours of answering emails and fighting traffic, and that is the mundane, secular grind.
But Vlhaczecha argues that compartmentalization is a delusion. If everything is Brahman, if absolutely everything is the divine gold we talked about earlier, then there is no part of life, no corner of the universe devoid of the divine. Therefore, your entire life, every mundane action can be seva.
But how does the mechanism of that actually work? I mean, how does filling out an agonizing expense report or like chopping onions become an act of spiritual service?
It sounds impossible, right?
Yeah. But the source notes are brilliant on this specific point. Seva is fundamentally about a shift in intention, not a shift in physical action.
Okay, wait.
The physical action remains identical. The example provided in the guides is eating a meal. Normally, you eat simply because you feel hunger pangs or because the food is delicious. Your intention is purely self-serving, designed to sustain your own biology.
Right. I eat the sandwich so I don't pass out before my 3 p.m. meeting.
Exactly. But in Seva, you eat that exact same sandwich, but you shift the internal intention. You eat with the conscious thought that the food is an offering to the divine presence within you. You are nourishing the divine.
Ah, I see.
From the outside, an observer watching you eat would see absolutely no difference. But internally, the entire energetic meaning of the action has transformed.
It's like the difference between a musician mechanically practicing a scale to memorize the fingering versus playing that exact same scale during performance, pouring their entire soul into it as a gift to the audience.
That's a beautiful way to think of it.
The notes are identical. The physical movement of the fingers is identical. But the frequency, the intention behind the action, elevates it from a chore to an offering.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. You do not need to run away to an isolated ashram to perform seva. Your office work, your daily commute, raising your children, if you consciously shift your intention to doing these things out of love and service to the divine reality surrounding you, the mundane grind becomes a continuous spiritual act.
That reframing is incredibly empowering. You don't need to carve out 3 extra hours in your day to be spiritual. You use the exact time you already have, just tuned to a different frequency.
Exactly.
So try picking one mundane daily activity today, washing the dishes, folding laundry, driving to work. As you do it, consciously declare internally, I am doing this for the divine. Notice how that simple shift in intention changes the texture of the entire experience.
And the ultimate goal, according to the final session notes for the instructors, is integration, synthesizing all these moving parts.
So what does this all mean when we put it together? We started with reality, fundamentally changing our perception to see the world as gold, as a divine expression rather than an illusion. Wow. Then we moved to relationship, choosing to love that divine reality purely without the spreadsheet calculation of the ego. From there, we embrace grace, realizing we don't have to force our way to enlightenment.
Surrendering control.
Exactly. And finally, we arrived at living, using seva to transform our everyday chores into acts of spiritual service.
And at first, applying this philosophy takes immense forced effort. You have to actively remind yourself this rude person is a divine expression. You have to pause and consciously shift your intention before you eat.
Right. It doesn't just happen automatically.
No, it feels mechanical, like that musician clumsily thinking about every single finger placement. But eventually, the philosophy integrates so deeply into your psychology that it requires no forced effort.
The scales become music.
Yes. The practice becomes fluid. A reaction, like immediately snapping back when someone insults you, slowly transforms into a response. You perceive the insult, you recognize it as just another shape of the gold in this divine playground, and you navigate it with grace rather than defensive ego.
That's amazing.
The guides warn the teachers never to let their students feel finished. It is a continuous, living journey.
It's not a destination you arrive at. It's a completely new way of traveling. We began this deep dive talking about the urge to escape reality, the desire to run away from the noise to find peace. But this philosophy is begging us to open our eyes wider, to look closer at the messy, loud reality until we see the gold it's made of.
Very well said.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you step back into your day. Think about the very next frustration you're going to face. You know it's coming. A traffic jam, a snarky comment from a coworker, a spilled cup of coffee.
It's inevitable.
It is. But if this philosophy holds true, if that annoyance isn't a glitch in your day, but an actual tangible piece of the divine playground specifically designed for you to interact with, designed for you to interact with, how does that change the way you take your very next breath?
That's the real question.
Be big and deep. We'll catch you on the next one.